inspired by Louisiana's old state capitol. Where am I? I'm in the basement of the old state capitol, where people were imprisoned during the Civil War. It wasn't the Northern Army that was imprisoned here. The story is really weird. So during the Civil War, the Northern Army came down here and they defeated the Confederates during the Battle of Baton Rouge. And then, what happens when you win a war? You take all their stuff. So they took the entire old state capitol. The Northern Army moved in here, they slept here, they ate here, and they imprisoned Confederate soldiers down here in the basement of the old state capitol. I've got more spooky stories to tell you, so follow me. Louisiana's old state capitol has a lot of people associated with its history, and they've got a lot of creepy stories to tell. This is Sarah Fowler Morgan. She kept a diary of her adventures as a young woman before, during, and after the Civil War. It's a great book, but I'm about to tell you a story that you might not learn from that journal. It's about her husband, Mr. Dawson. Together, Sarah and her husband lived with their nanny, a young and beautiful Swiss woman named Helene. Well, they had a neighbor, the treacherous Thomas B. McDowell, who had a criminal past. Thomas B. McDowell went over to visit the nanny, and even though he was a married man, he had romantic interests in the young nanny, Helene. Well, Sarah's husband was there and did not approve. In fact, they got into a spat because Sarah's husband, was a gentleman and was trying to tell McDowell to lay off. He hit him with his cane, but the treacherous and evil McDowell took out a gun, shot, and murdered Sarah's husband. And here's the creepiest part of the story. McDowell dragged Sarah's husband's body over to his house and buried him underneath the stairs. Well, his conscience must have been getting to him, because a few days later, McDowell unearthed the dead, decomposing corpse of Sarah's husband and told everything about his terrible deed to the police. And he was acquitted for his horrible crime. Do you believe it? But years later, the thought of having murdered Sarah's husband must have gotten to him, because he dealt himself the same fate. There you have it. Another creepy story from Louisiana's old state capitol and Sarah Fowler Morgan. Who would think that this beautiful setting might be the home of some really scary stories? But this time of year, it's fun to tell some stories, and this story is true. At one time, there was a concrete pond located on the grounds of Louisiana's old state capitol. Well, in 1893, it was decided to drain that pond so they could add a festive and lovely fountain. When they drained the water, they found some really strange things. Lots of weapons with bayonets, a lot of money, and some very expensive jewelry.
They also found silver with some mysterious initials on it, NG. We still don't know who that is, but maybe some of you can help us figure that out. Research is the best friend to curiosity. But the creepiest thing they found was a human skeleton. Oh yeah. And they never identified who that poor soul was either. A newspaper at the time covered the story saying, if we ever identified whose skeleton that belonged to, what poor soul that was, it's possible we could unearth a foul murder indeed. Think about that next time you roll down the hills or enjoy the beautiful trees at Louisiana's old state capitol.